And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Today we're taking a look at the Taverns of Tiefenthal. Now this is from Wolfgang Warsch. I don't know if it's a sequel of sorts, but he just did the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Same companies, same look of the game to some degree. The last one, the Quacks of Quedlinburgs, you were pulling things from a bag. Here it's very similar, but you're pulling cards from a deck. It's a deck builder of sorts where you're trying to serve beer to as many people as possible. Let's take a look. Each player has their own player board, and then there's also a main board for all the players, which will keep track of players moving around in the monastery. As you move on this track, you're going to get various bonus, more cards for your deck, etc. And it also keeps track of the rounds. There's 8 rounds in a game. At the beginning of each round, you'll move this moon token 1, and each player will get the bonus. In this case, I get a patron that's placed here. But the rest of the game is going to be taking place around this middle board here. Now, this board has your own personal player deck. Each player will have a deck of customers of their color, and you'll also start with some of the base cards up here, and that deck is in front of you. So at the beginning of each round, you'll move the moon marker, players will get their bonus, and then you start drawing cards from your deck. Everyone does it at the same time, so you draw cards. If you draw a customer, they'll go at one of your tables. Everyone has 3 tables. So 1, there's another customer. Here I've drawn a server, so the server goes over here. All the servers that you draw go in that area. Here I've drawn a brewer, so they go down there with the other brewers. And here I've drawn another customer. I'm done. As soon as all your tables are filled with customers, you're finished. If I had drawn another table card, I would have been able to place it there and keep going, but I drew and filled up my bar first. I could discard this to redraw, or I could discard this also to move 1 on the monastery track, but that's a one-time use. So I have to decide when to do those. Once everyone has drawn all their cards, then players are going to get their dice ready. For each server, you'll roll a die of your color and place that below your board. Then everyone's going to roll 4 dice. They're going to roll those and put them on this little coaster that they have. You're going to choose one of them, putting it in front of you, pass the coaster to the next player who will choose one, and everyone will keep going till everyone has chosen all the dice and placed them in front of them. Players are then going to simultaneously take these dice and place them on their board. When placing dice on your board, some spots any die can be played in. Other spots need a very specific die. So for example, I would love to put dice up here on these customers, but that needs a 1 and that needs a 2, and I don't have any 1s or 2s. I do have a 5 here. I didn't roll any 5s either. Over here I can place as many 6s as I want, so I'm going to put 2 6s there. Some spots you can only place 1 thing, other spots you can place as many as you want. I'm going to put a 3 here to get a coin. I can only do that once. I'm going to put a 4 here to get a beer. And then my leftover die, well, there's nothing I can do with that one at this point in time. So once everyone has placed all their dice, you'll then do them. If you put a dice on these customers, you're going to get that much money. Now there is no actual coins in this game. It's basically a virtual currency that you have that you can use. And in this case, I got 1 coin. Now 1 coin is not enough to buy anything, but I can store up to 2 coins, so I'll be able to use one of those coins next turn. This gives me 1 beer, which is another virtual currency. These give me 1 beer plus 1 for each card here, so each of those dice there gives me 2 beer. So I have a total of 5 beer. Well, that's great because that's going to let me buy a card up here. Now there are different kinds of cards that you can buy. You can buy new patrons. So I have 4 beer. I can buy this person. That lets me put a 4 die on them for 4 coins. And when I take that, I'm going to buy that and put it on top of my deck. If I had money, I could buy other things up here. I could buy this guy, which just gives me a beer when you draw him, straight up. This person here lets me add pips to my dice. You already seen the servers and the tables and the brewers. You can buy more of those. When you buy those, they'll go on top of your deck. They're also useful because many of them are worth victory points at the end of the game. These people, when you buy them, a new one is replaced here. And sometimes they also give you special abilities. Let's see, did the one I buy give me anything? Nope. But this person here can be put on top of somebody else on the table. Now there's also a pile of threes. There's always threes. Once all the threes are gone, we replace those. But that's not the only thing you can do with money. See, there are many things in here that can be upgraded. And you'll notice there's costs on these, and the costs here, so for example, this one here, where you can put any die and you get a coin. For 10 coins, I can upgrade this, and now if I put a die there, I get 3 coins. This one here lets me move 1 on the monastery track, but it will now let me move 2 when I flip it. Where I store gold can be upgraded to now I can store 5 gold from turn to turn. I can store extra beer over here. This guy, I'll get 2 beers instead of 1. Over here, I can now add 1 to a die automatically every turn. Over here, I'll have a permanent server, so I always have 1 die of my own color. I can even upgrade the top here and have 4 tables instead of 3. Not only that, whenever you upgrade, you get a noble. A noble is worth 10 points. They'll buy a little bit of beer, 2 for 2, they're always the same thing. And also, if you draw multiple nobles in the same turn, they all sit at the same table, so they don't take up too much space in your deck. Nobles are worth 10 points, and also you can always, if you have a whole extra pile of beer, you can just take nobles. So for example, 9 beer gives me 1 nobles, 14 gives me 2, and 18 gives me 3 nobles. That's pretty much the game. At the end of the round, you will clear all your cards that you've played, putting them in a discard pile, which you'll shuffle and take later on, and then draw new ones. When this pile runs out, you shuffle your discard pile and put it back there and draw more. At the end of the game, you're just going to add up all the points on all your different cards, and whoever has the most points is the winner. There's also several modules that come with the game that you can play that do various things. They add different cards. There is a whole nother rule section for these modules. So we have the schnapps, we have your reputation precedes you, every beginning is difficult, where it makes it a little bit more difficult, and the later the hour, the nicer the guest. These all add extra things that you can add to the game. Now this game has a lot of pieces and a lot of cards in it. The artwork is fine. I don't mind the artwork. It's the typical art that comes with these kind of games. This board is interesting that every part of it can be flipped over, but I'll tell you what, setup is kind of a bear. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. I think getting a big plastic bag and just putting all of each player's pieces in. But you put all these different pieces in, even for modules. Sometimes you turn things over and flipping these over. And it's fine, but that is a lot of extra work that goes on in the game. For the most part, symbology is not too complex, and the cards aren't too difficult to sort out, but I'm telling you, there is a lot of stuff that goes on in this game, a lot of pieces, and I think there's more pieces than complexity, I think. I thought Taverns at Tiefenthal was okay. I have a couple problems with the game, though. It's an entertaining game, and the concept of the game, the way the game works, is more interesting than the actual gameplay itself. Now, I played with one of the modules. I haven't played with all of them. I've heard that the modules make the game much better, which is fine. But, I mean, at the same time, I feel like the base game should be a little good out the gate. Here's some of the problems I have with this game. First of all, it's very lucky. Now, there's a lot of luck in deck building games, but in this game, you draw a bunch of cards, and you place these cards out, and sometimes your first 3 cards that you draw are patrons. They might be 1s or 2s. Now, granted, you can redraw those with your one-time use guy, but the person who drew better than me doesn't have to use their one-time use guy, and they can use that for something else. And I'm used to deck building games where you have throwaway turns. Let's take the most famous deck building game in all, Dominion. Sometimes you draw cards and you can't do anything that turn. The difference is this game has 8 rounds, while Dominion, you have way more than 8 turns, maybe 30, 40 turns. And so having a throwaway one isn't that big of a deal. In this one, having a throwaway one, and you could get 3 throwaway ones, your final turn could be a throwaway, right? And that's just kind of a little bit demoralizing to me. Secondly, like I said, the complexity of setting all this stuff up doesn't really match the complexity of the game. The whole deck building aspect, you turn things over, you roll dice, and it's usually pretty obvious where to put the dice. If I have a guy who needs a 3 die to give me 3 coins and I have a 3, I'm going to put it there. Now, granted, there's the drafting, and you should try to draft dice, and maybe you could re-roll and add pips, and there's other things you can do. So I'm not saying there's no strategy, but it seemed pretty much straightforward. And thirdly, I felt like the game was really cool in turns 5, 6, and 7, and 8 maybe. Maybe even 6, 7, and 8. The first several turns were really boring. You don't have enough money to buy any interesting cards. You don't have enough beer usually to buy interesting patrons. And I know, again, people say, well, that's how deck building games are. They ramp up. Sure, but again, most deck building games don't have only 8 turns. And so in this game, for instance, I would say less than half the game was really interesting. It was really interesting, but that build up to get there felt boring. And then finally, I felt like the upgrades are uber powerful. That's what you should go for. You should upgrade things when you can because it gives you 10 points every time you upgrade. You do get like a free upgrade on the last turn of the game, but at that point you're just doing it to get the nobles mostly. But it just felt uber powerful to do so, and so you pick the ones you can afford. Some of the upgrades, there's a cool feature where you can discard cards that match that person, get rid of them out of your deck to have a discount on the upgrade, so that's neat. But it also felt like getting tables is a really obvious thing to do. The more tables you have, tables are worth points. Tables allow you to put out more patrons. Tables are just not bad. And that's the thing about this game. It doesn't feel like the balance is there like, ooh, you could buy this, but it couldn't be bad. And you could get really messed over. Like sometimes, for example, as the game goes by, the 3 beer patrons are going to be gone. And you might draw 3 or 4 beer on your turn. And you have no one to buy. Because all the people, the patrons, take 5 plus beer. And you didn't upgrade your thing because you couldn't afford to for the beer. And so then you just throw that away, and again, it feels like a wasted turn. So, now this sounds like it's all negative, and I don't mean it to be all negative. The concept of drawing the cards and placing the dice and drafting dice, all that's neat. None of it feels particularly new. None of it feels different. The only different thing about this game is you draw your cards and immediately play them out. But there are a lot of deck building games that are out there, and this one doesn't seem like it's that cool or that interesting compared to the other ones. It almost feels like in a lot of ways the game is playing itself and I'm kind of watching. Sure, I make a few decisions, but in a game like this I want more control, especially a game like this that has all these pieces. So if you asked me to play Taverns Tiefenthal and you're help set it up, I probably would. It's not a bad game. I enjoy the drafting dice. I like watching it. But at the end of it, it felt a little unsatisfying, like eating a light snack for dinner rather than dinner itself. And while I love Quacks, Quacks just gets better for me every play, I'm not seeing that in this one. But mileage varies. Some people really like the game. But that's my opinions of Taverns of Tiefenthal. Dice Tower Judgment, it's a little fun.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando, in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching the Dice Tower.